Strayblade took my emotions for a ride.
I am not amused.
This is good! This is good!
I'm in a glass case of emotion!
Now I do my best to play through the pain when new games don't pan out the way I expected. It sucks to waste your money, and you want to hope for the best. Strayblade gave me that dreaded feeling pretty quick, with clunky traversal movements, to obvious bugs and glitches, and no environmental collision effects. I thought this game was busted, but something kept me playing, and I couldn't put my finger on it, so I kept on going. And out of the bad first impression came something I've been really enjoying. But it's not without its flaws, so let's dive in. And if you guys want more game reviews, news, and deals, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Strayblade is an action-adventure Souls-like. You play as Farron, a warrior who has found himself lost in the ancient valley of Akria. Your job, and with the help of your partner Boji, is to find your way out and back to your own world. With a cartoon aesthetic similar to some Blizzard titles that gives a nostalgic vibes from old-school action games like Ratchet & Clank, this was its first big mistake. With not a ton of graphical detail, I was expecting a little bit more polish, but I ran into bugs and clunky traversal mobility right off the bat. Now if you've played and enjoyed Souls-like games, you'll be able to adjust to the timing, but if you never played, this one's gonna drive you crazy. Some of the enemies' attack animations are like watching somebody about to sneeze who never actually does and then randomly decides to do it seconds after saying, "False alarm." It was tough and a big pain point, but once I got past it, I really enjoyed the challenge. All the enemies have very different attack timings, which makes you really have to pay attention and always keeps you on your toes. And just as a tip, they indicate attacks with blue auras to let you know that they can be parried, and red auras to let you know that they can be dodged. But do not take that as a signal to just hit the corresponding button immediately. Instead, tell yourself, okay, I gotta get ready to watch their attack movement. This tripped me up big time as I kept wanting to hit the buttons as soon as I saw whatever glowing color popped up. Now they do have difficulty settings and it's customizable at that, from reducing incoming damage, increasing stamina regen, and so on. So if you want to make it easy, you can. Or if you want to make it painful by making them damage sponges, you can do that too. Now, putting aside the glitches and bugs, which I believe can be patched, let's focus on what Strayblade does well. They change up the typical Souls-like system, like losing souls and currency on death. A welcome change to avoid rage quit. You still have a bonfire type respawn points, but with a new system. When you clear large groups of enemies in a zone after death, the land resets and can completely change everything around you. What was once a den of annoying dog beasts that you cleared has now changed to a fully loaded enemy outpost. This is a huge feature that I've been enjoying the entire time. Always wondering what things will look like the next time I come back after seeing this. The world is actually quite stunning and more importantly immersive for a small open world. With interconnecting zones and hidden shortcuts similar to the Dark Souls series, it begs to be explored. I found myself going off the beaten path quite often in search of new weapon and armor blueprints to make at the forge, or a new color palette to dye and customize my gear. You can find chests, loot enemies, and find crafting materials all around the valley. And these crafting materials are not only used to craft new armor and weapons, but to create weapon runes, just another thing to hunt for on your exploration. These runes can be applied onto any weapon, and up to 3 at any time. After you master a weapon, which I'll go over here in a moment, these runes can have effects such as boosting crit damage chance, lifesteal on executions, applying AoE effects to your heavy attacks, and so on. And they only have so many charges once applied, so finding these materials becomes pretty important if you want to apply these at all times. Speaking of weapons, this is one thing Strayblade does very well, and gives a new way of spending skill points. Back to the weapon mastery I spoke on earlier, this is how you get additional stat boosts and spend skill points. You master a weapon by, you guessed it, killing. And once a weapon is mastered, you can acquire its stat boost. These range from increased health and energy, the amount of damage you do with light or heavy attacks, and even increasing your health berry capacity. I found this quite a fun way to level. You naturally gain levels, so getting skill points wasn't ever a problem. Choosing which weapon to level is what is important, because you may be in need of a health boost or more health berries, so now you need to level the specific weapon that rewards that trait. I found this to be an excellent way to get players to try all the weapons. And as I said before, this is something they got right. All the weapons feel unique, with all their own timing and fighting styles. Even multiple sword and shield sets have completely different timing and special abilities, so they don't feel the same. I found myself loving certain weapons that I would typically never play because the weightiness feels really good. And with 30 unique weapons, each with their own special abilities and executions to find and craft, combat really stays fresh the entire time. In addition to that, as you progress through the story, you also gain the power of 3 elements by defeating the generals in each zone. These elements not only allow you to use them in battle, but they also become a crucial part of exploring and gaining access to new areas. Now let's talk about the story. This one's bittersweet. For being a lower budget game, cutscenes are few and far between. Instead, you get what I'll call dialogue pit stops. Quite frequently, you'll be stopped by Boji to converse, and really get quite a lot of information about the lore and history of the land, and listen to the main characters reveal more about themselves and watch them develop into a true duo, and go through emotional heavy sequences. The problem is, I don't see a lot of people sitting to listen to all this dialogue. One of the biggest changes I would love to see, even before big budget cutscenes, is to allow dialogue to continue while you play, not be forced to stop and watch 2 character models stand and do nothing.
Who will revive you again if that happens?
Just spit it out. You need me. For whatever reason.
It's unfortunately boring. The voice acting isn't too shabby though, and I think a lot of people would enjoy the conversations and dialogue, but not at the expense of waiting around. I ended up skipping a couple of these because I just wanted to keep exploring. And if that chatter was happening while I could walk around, it would have made a hell of a difference. So to wrap it up, I think this is a solid buy for only $35. You get a whole 24 hours of gameplay, and that's a good deal if you ask me. It's a rough intro and a clunky adjustment to begin with, but it really starts to shine after only a couple hours in. With so many weapon options, any fan of melee weapon combat is sure to find a few that really fit their playstyles. So with a patch or 2, and maybe a Sword and Shield start, they may have themselves a series here. I know I definitely give a second installment a play. If any of you have played yet, or plan on getting it, let me know what your guys' thoughts are on the game. I'd love to hear. As always, thank you guys for sticking around to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.